Hello. Today I'm going to tell you a story that is an Inuit story, and it is called The Hunter and the Fox Woman. Once upon a time, in the deep, dark woods, there was a little cabin, a very sweet, small cabin, and in this cabin lived a hunter. And like many of his kind, he could really make do with very little and lived a good life. He would go out with his equipment and come home with an animal or a bird that had laid down its life for him. He would cook his meal and feel grateful that he had a full belly. And really, he knew the ways of the forest, he knew the language of the forest. But sometimes at night, he would be in bed and think to himself, is this all there is? But mostly, he was very content. So one day, he's coming home after his usual day out in the forest, and he sees something that really takes him aback. He's almost at his cabin, and out of the chimney is a thin blue line of smoke. Well, he doesn't go through the door. He goes kind of around to the side and looks through the window to see what's going on. And he sees something bubbling on the stove, and someone has taken his clothes, washed them, and mended them, and laid them neatly on a chair. Well, this kind of kindness, he hasn't experienced this kind of kindness in years or maybe ever. Wow. Well, the week goes on, and every day when he comes home, it's the same thing. Smoke trailing out of the chimney. Well, finally, he does what most of you would have thought of. He comes home early to see, what's going on. He gets home on Friday, and the door is a little cracked open to the cabin. He looks in, and he sees a fox woman. And he knows that she's a fox woman because she has a beautiful, long, golden red ponytail and her movements. And she's singing a song using words that none of us really remember. Well, he walks in. At that point, she turns around and she has a wonderful loaf of bread in her hands. Well, he knows that's a good thing. And she says, I am now the woman of this house. Well, he thinks, I think that's a good thing. So he walks further into the kitchen and they sort of circle each other, but he prepares the meal with the food that he's brought, and they sit down with the bread, the yummy bread, and his stew, and they spend the evening together. He goes into the kitchen, into an old cabinet, and pulls out a wine skin, and they have a little wine, and she tells these fabulous stories of the forest, and she actually has some great jokes, and they laugh. He then sings songs of his childhood, and they stay up way into the night. And the next morning, they really feel like they have joined together. Well, this goes on for days, weeks, months. I mean, who really knows? We can all feel a little envious because it was actually a little love affair was starting. And things were good. However, there was just one thing. The fox woman had put her pelt on the back of the front door. I mean, all of us have a pelt, but hers was hanging there. And it had sort of a musty, wild, regal smell. Well, at first, the hunter found it charming. It's just really great. But after a while, that scent just got into everything. I mean, he could taste that scent when he ate a meal. It was just a little too much. So one evening, they're sitting at the table, little candle between them, and he says, "My darling woman, you know that the day that you came into my life was like the spring flowers on branches. It was as if somebody had picked the moon out of the sky and handed it to me. The song you sing is a song I have waited my whole life to hear. Whew. But the pelt has got to go, okay? Couldn't you put it in the shed outside? I mean, does it have to actually be living here, on the back door?" The fox woman looks at him. She doesn't say anything. They go up to bed. The next morning, the hunter does his usual gathering of his things, leaves the cabin, and the fox woman thinks to herself, "Oh, I'm sure it was just a phase. He'll get over it. I'm not going to say anything." So, a number of months go by. Now, the scent of that pelt has become an obsession with the hunter. He can't stand it. He's out in the forest, and he feels like all the animals can smell that scent before he even gets there. I mean, he tries to, shoot his arrow, and the scent sort of throws him off. I mean, food is getting scarce. I mean, this is just not okay. So one night, all the charm has left his language. All the goodness has left his heart. He pounds his fist on the table. "Woman, that pelt has got to go. I can't stand it any longer. This is my house, and it's not going to be in here anymore." And he stands up, storms up the stairs, and gets into bed. Well, he's up in bed, and he does sort of calm down a little bit, and he realizes that he's not hearing the fox woman coming up the stairs. But he goes to sleep. The next morning, he wakes up, and as he comes down the stairs, he realizes no smell, no fox woman, and no pelt. And I can tell you, and tell you truly, that from that day forward, every evening, you could find the hunter on the porch of his small, sweet cabin, with all the longing in his body, looking out, and he's sniffing, hoping to catch a whiff.